It's all right. Stand by. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Sonic Talk number, let me think, it must be 339, I think, if I remember correctly. I've got all my mice tangled up. Where am I looking? That's what I need to see. Very pleased to have everybody aboard. We have indeed a returner of the wandering kind who we haven't seen for a long time. So I think we'll go to you first. Mr. Richard Hilton of disco band Chic. Looking very well. All this touring seems to be suiting you well. I think you've probably played to several million people since we last saw you, because you've been not only been on tour, you've been on sort of primetime TV in the UK. Did the X Factor and dancing, Strictly Come Dancing. Is that right?
Don't recall Strictly Come Dancing, but it's possible. X Factor for sure, and the Glastonbury show played to a lot of people.
Well, we've seen you before since Glastonbury, but how's it been? It's been pretty whirlwind. You have the nice way to tail end the summer and come into winter, I guess.
It's been great. Incredible audiences. There's just an amazing appetite for this music right now, and it crosses seemingly all demographic boundaries.
I've been watching Niall on Twitter. Very good person to follow on Twitter, actually. He's very sort of straightforward and, hey, look, sort of, this is cool stuff that's happening to me. He's a good social media person to follow. And I'm guessing, sounds like you've been having a lot of fun. I think, was he inaugurated into the APRS Producers Guild as well, Hall of Fame? I think that happened quite recently too.
I've heard that he was, but I didn't know it was coming, and I'm not sure I even know what it is, but congratulations, Niall. Great job, man. So you deserve every bit of it.
But I will come back to you, because I want to quiz you about these playing on these kind of live mega national TV happenings. So I'm going to go to Mark Tinley, who's also a guest on the show too, before we get into it. So there we have Mark Tinley, likebeing.com, creative thinker, sound artist, and sort of the lights suiting you.
Do you know what I've done since I last spoke to you?
What have you done, Mark?
I thought, why on earth have I got likebeing.com? I mean, it's a cool URL and it's good for one of the things that I do, but if I'm going to be Mark Tinley and Gaz Williams is going to have gazwilliams.me,
you did,
then I think I should have marktinley.co.uk, so you'll have to change it.
No problem at all.
In fact, I think likebeing.com might just lead to marktinley.co.uk, thinking about it, so...
well, you can leave a sort of paper trail.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I've been deleting. I seem to have hundreds of websites with most bizarre names as well, because I have these ideas and think, oh, that's a good idea. I must do that, and then I half do it and never finish it. And so I'm sort of trying to drop websites that don't do anything off and make more useful ones. I sold some music because of that.
Nice.
And I spent royalties on this.
What is that? Is that a finger
like
protector?
that.
Yeah, that looks like maybe it's not the finger it's designed for.
This cost £1.29p.
Right.
And it came all the way from China, and it's an organic glass guitar slide. Now, what makes it organic? I don't know. Is all glass organic, or do you think this is like a sales pitch?
I think glass is made of silicon and sand, isn't it? As far as I'm aware, which are, I guess, organic materials.
I think you did that whole thing just
fit in with this whole kind of let's recycle everything and look after the planet and everything. And organic glass slide must be a marketing ploy, surely, really.
I have no, but maybe it's made from Tsingtao bottles, which is my favourite Chinese beer. If you've never tried it, it's delicious.
It works as well as one from the local guitar shop for £15, so I'm a very happy man, I am.
How much was the shipping?
And that included the shipping, Nick. £1.29, I think. £1.23 or £1.29, I can't remember. Included international shipping to my door.
Wow, that's
but
impressive.
If I wanted to send a postcard to my mum, it would cost me 60 pence. So I don't know how that works, but
Maybe it was delivered by one of those extremely rare cranes that they're fond of drawing in. Oh, what's that? That's another box as well. I think we should that could be called the bird box, Rich.
Well, I believe we've just been flipped off, actually. It's all one grand excuse to give us the finger.
Well, I'm very happy for you, Mark. That sounds like you've had a marvellous bargain. Over here, what's happened in this end? Well, I've reviewed... I'm waiting to hear back whether I've covered all the points I think should be covered. I've reviewed the launch control from Novation, which I think is really good.
Cool.
And also... the Launch Key Mini from Novation, which is also good. I mean, not a great keyboard, but nice and functional.
Are we doing show and tell? Because I've got some.
Oh, go on then. Go on. Yes, please do.
Well, let's see. First of all, in pursuit of the ability to record some high-quality things on very rare occasions on the road, I got one of these.
Ooh.
Which is really, really lightweight, which was like job one for me, is the thing had to sound great and be light. And this appears to fit the bill.
What is it? One channel, 2 channels?
Yeah, it's 2 channels. A mic. I guess you can take a stereo thing, but it's basically intended for an instrument and a mic.
Right.
Secondly, on the subject of light devices, here is the RME MADI-Face USB, which purports to take 128 channels over USB via MADI.
Wow. We tried it yet.
64 in and 64 out, up to 192K. They claim.
Over USB.
Yes.
Is it USB 3? Has to be USB.
It's not. It's USB 2.
Wow.
Really?
So what are you going to use that for, Rich?
Well, we've been searching for a way, in certain cases, to be able to quickly and easily record live performances.
Right.
And quite often, the consoles will provide a MADI interface, and for some of the ones that we use that don't, we've gotten cards. And so the idea would be to try to capture multi-track live recordings.
Wow.
Okay, and then...
There's more!
As if that weren't enough, my birthday present arrived today.
Woohoo!
Oh, Rich, you will be delighted with that. You're going to have to buy yourself some modular equipment to make the most of it, though.
Well, I might even have to break out my MS-20, which is sitting around the corner there.
MS-20 won't work because it's the wrong voltage. It'll work for modulation, but it won't work for CV gate unless you convert.
So you mean I might have to
They used to do a Roland to Korg converter many years ago, didn't they? I think it's 1 volt per octave on the Korg going in completely the opposite direction to the Roland, if I remember rightly.
Yeah, I can't remember. I did see on
the gate is hot on instead of hot off or something.
Yeah, I don't remember which is which, but it does need to. You got volt per octave and hertz volts, I think. And I forget now. Rich, have you plugged it in yet, Rich? Have you actually had a play, or is it literally arrived?
It's still in the box. It just arrived before the show.
That is dedication to the show. I know what I'd do if I was you, but I'm glad you haven't, because otherwise it'd be me and Mark only.
I do have a synth like right next to me that I play, and it's going to be replaced by the...
What's the one you got right next to you?
What is it? It's just a Muse box, which I was, shall we say, given. And
right, okay.
So I've just been playing around with that just because it's here and it's there, and I have this tiny little Akai keyboard on top of it, and all of that's going to go when that thing comes out of the box.
I'll tell you what, I'm really pleased to see that you have got one, because obviously with the original Micro Brute, with the Mini Brute, it was a nightmare to get, and there just weren't enough of them. And the fact that you've got one means that they've got they've cranked up the machinery and they're going to pump them out, because they are going to sell those by the pallet load. I'm almost
pretty sure I ordered it. I ordered it yesterday.
Wow.
And it's here today.
So that's great. It must be stock.
Yeah, it was in stock.
Nice.
And the shop's about an hour from here, so it wasn't any big deal.
No, I'm pleased for you and jealous, because mine had to go back, and I really want one, because it's a great sounding synthesizer. But anyway,
I really want one.
You really want one too, and you've got one.
This is the opposite end of the delivery spectrum to this glass slide, because I ordered this about 6 weeks ago, and it came via sea from China, I think.
It was delivered by slug. Yeah.
It sat on the floor of the rowboat.
So, Rich, I wanted to ask you. So, you've just done X Factor, and these are major live television events. I mean, at least I think X Factor is live because they do. You played on the Saturday special, was it the Saturday night or the Sunday night? Do you recall? I think it's the Saturday night.
I believe it was Guy Fawkes Day, whatever that means, because there were fireworks going on at Wembley right outside the TV studio.
I think that must have been Sunday then. So tell us. I'm just really interested as the process. You know, you arrive. What's the kind of sequence of events from doing something like that?
The sequence of events begins weeks before.
Yeah, sure. The rider.
When I get an email saying they want us to work to track.
Right. Okay.
And what you heard that night for deep down Chic aficionados are brand new rough mixes of classic material that I did, which leave certain vocal elements that allowed our girls to fit in better over them.
Right.
And so actually everything that played that night by us was a combination of what was happening on stage and what was in these mixes.
Right. Okay. I suspect they wouldn't possibly risk a full live band of that size performing on a.
It seems that they don't, and they have this amazing drum kit that you hit it and it makes practically no noise. It sounds like you've just like tapped on the side of a cardboard box. It's pretty, and cymbals as well. It's really remarkable that they've got this so well coordinated in that regard, and. Certain elements you were hearing were being played live, and certain elements were represented in the mixes that we had to create. I believe it was a 3-minute, 30-second presentation that consisted of 3 songs.
Right.
And it turned out to be 3:32, but that was as close as I could get, and that was even creating some very odd kind of sections in order to connect them. But it was great fun for me, and it always is, to put up those tracks and get to listen to them and work on them, because frankly, you just push faders up and it sounds like pan the things the right way and it sounds like the record.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
It's unbelievably well recorded and well arranged that it sort of mixes itself on some level.
So in terms of what happened on the night, okay, so you play you.
That wasn't what you were asking me, I know, but that's
that is still very interesting. So in terms of what happens on the night, you show up, you've got the playback, and then what they do, they do a couple of passes in rehearsal, and then you do your live thing, and presumably they cut it together between what they've got and sync it all up. Is that how it works, or is it
I'm not 100% sure, but I think it goes out live.
Right. So
we had rehearsals, but I believe what went out live. You know, probably with a 6 or 7 second delay like TV does, but you know, as live as things get in that medium.
It's that, and how was that? Did you? I mean, I don't know how many people watched that. I think there must be, you know, in the high millions. I don't know whether it's over 10, but it's a lot of millions of people. So I, in some ways, I imagine it was quite a relief not to actually have to play that live, because it would have been a bit of extra pressure, right?
Well, in the preceding 12 days, I believe we had played 10 gigs.
Right, so you'd have been right
all
on it.
Different places.
Wow.
All in different places. So now, admittedly, there are places that were close together in Ireland for the most part.
Sounds like you had a blast
and that's
there.
actually, pardon me?
Sounds like you had a blast there, actually.
Oh, it was great, and there's such a unbelievably familial relationship between us and the Irish people these days, and the English people and the Japanese people. It's like people love this music right now, and we try to play it well, and they seem to appreciate that.
Absolutely.
It's hard to really put it any more simply than that. And for me to look out and feel all that and share in their happiness is a blessing beyond description.
Excellent.
Sounds awesome.
I'm really, I guess the other questions are: do you get to kind of hang out with the rest of the judges and all that kind of thing, or is it very much a kind of, you know, you're in the talent, you're in and you're out, and you're on your own schedule?
You'd have a hard time figuring out whether they were any less interested in me than I was in them.
That's very nicely put there.
Thank you.
So they smile and wave when you finished and say platitudes, and then that's it. You're off the stage and out the back door.
I didn't meet any of them, but I understand one of them was Gary Barlow, who we opened for in Hyde Park about a year or two ago.
Uh-huh.
So and I saw Sharon Osbourne up there, but I don't know who these people are, and I've never seen the show.
No. Well, you haven't missed a lot. I can. Although I think this week was the first week, because my family watches it. My daughter's into it. She's 10. You know, it's basically TV designed for her. We have a family tradition whereby we divide up all the acts at the beginning in a hat. You pick them up, and then whoever gets chucked out on the Sunday, we have a forfeit, which is generally running down to the bottom of the street next to the next lamppost with a pair of underpants on your head and coming back again. So this week was my first week. I like to say I've been very successful, but I knew it was coming.
Is there video?
I'm not sure if there is.
Video.
I'm not sure if there is of me. There's probably a photo somewhere, but I chose the man type garments. I didn't go with anything frilly, but there were actually quite a lot of passers-by this week, and my daughter was kindly shouting, "Look, Dad, there's Dad. What are you doing?" And yeah, but the worst part about this week, it's quite dark in our street, and I ran down, and there was a young lady walking up, and I literally got about 10 feet past her. And then thought, what do I do? Because she looks a bit uncomfortable. I didn't know whether to run back past her because I thought that might freak her out a bit, thinking I was running after her. So I just sort of held back and kind of walked up the street until we got into view of my daughter, who was laughing. And then I think she felt more at ease. But I just didn't know what to do with myself, and with a pair of pants on my head. Anyway, that's probably more information than you need to know. But that's my X Factor story, which is absolutely no X Factor story at all. But I think I've
better than mine.
I think I've actually got the favourite. I've got somebody called Sam Bailey, who's the prison officer, who's got a superb voice. I say so myself. Not that I'm very fond of the show, but I have to have an interest because, otherwise I'll be down the road with a pair of pants on my head, and I've got to do it with conviction. Let's see if we got a topic. I think we do have a topic. I'm going to start with this one, Mark, because you popped this one up. This one looked kind of cool. And is it going to play? That's interesting. No is the answer. Oh, there we go. Looks like somewhere in West London, possibly. This is a chap singing when a Bronski beats Runaway Hideaway. I don't know what it was called, actually. Small Town Boy? I can't remember the name of the track.
Turn away, run away, turn away, run away.
But what's good about this is, well, you'll see in a second.
Run away, turn away. Oh, wait. 1, 2, 3, run away, turn away, run away, turn away, run away. Run away, turn away.
Ah, isn't that a beautiful moment? And that is actually, what's his name? I'm terribly...
Jimmy Sommerville.
Jimmy Sommerville, that's right. Jimmy Sommerville, who was there. You passed that one in, Mark, and it's just such a great idea, isn't it? I mean, one thing that struck me, I mean, Jimmy Sommerville, we're talking that hit was, 20, 25 years ago? And he must be, I'd say, probably over 50, and he's still got a really pretty impressive falsetto voice. But yes,
especially
over to you, Mark.
I mean, at the end of that video, he speaks to the guy, and he's...
All right, son.
Quite deep, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then I think it's brought out the Aspie in me, because I've been like scrolling through that video and going, what are those shops in the background, and what signs are there, and where did this happen? And the guy sounds American, but it looks like it happened somewhere in Europe, because there's Euro signs and blah 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 blah. But amazing. I mean, can you imagine? You go out busking, you're standing there strumming away on your guitar, singing a song that obviously you've picked and you like, and then the original singer comes and stands next to you and does a duet with you. Amazing.
I think
really cool.
I think that this should become a pastime, because when I was courting in my courting days, we used to go to festivals and out and a lot, and there was this habit called this pastime called blending, where you'd have a bag with like a few hats in and maybe a different jacket, and you'd go and you'd find somebody that you think you could look a bit like, and you go and stand as close as you could and try and look as much like them as you possibly could, and your mate would take a picture. And that's it's a sort of similar, and I think this should start, I think this should be happening. I think there's something, I think maybe if Niall gets the opportunity, he should maybe head to just hand up the busker and just start strumming away. That would be pretty cool. There's probably a whole TV series in it, don't you think?
Well, it's cool in any case. And yeah, there have been moments like that. We did a tour earlier this year with other musicians, one of whom wanted desperately to learn how to play a particular thing, and I gave him a bit of a guitar lesson.
Nice. That would be...
And it's happened odd times in public places, not usually with him around, where, like one time we were in the back alley of a 747, back when you could actually stand in the back alley of a 747, and there were the singers around and people started singing, and all of a sudden a ukulele showed up, and I found myself in this galley playing Le Freak on a ukulele and people singing along.
That's nice.
Excellent.
So there have been moments like that, but this video is unbelievably charming. And mind you, I'm not familiar with anything about it, the song, the artists, or anything.
No, it's a UK pop electro kind of thing, yeah.
I got what happened completely, and it's just such a... my heart was so in it. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's a great... and it's had, Mark, what was it, some ridiculous amount of views?
When I sent it to you, it had about 2 million hits, but now it's had about 3.5 million hits in a week or so, hasn't it? So it's clearly very popular.
It must have been you sharing it on your Twitter feed, Mark. That must have been it.
I wish. I think it's the whole idea of, wow, that could, so this could happen to anyone. It's that, that could happen to me kind of feeling, isn't it?
Yeah, I really like the way he sort of goes, oh, wow, and then sort of starts again and go, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, no, great.
And then, is it you? Is it you? Oh my God, it is. And then he just kind of like seems to sort of fall apart.
No, great stuff. Nice little charming way to start. Right, let's move on to another one. Now this came in, and I had to play it because it is just awesome.
Под каким девизом мы работаем?
Не знаю.
Повернитесь, пожалуйста. Пусть будет, как будет. Как-нибудь, да будет. Никогда так не было, чтобы никак не было.
Once upon a time, in Russia, a revolution happened. Lenin proposed a simple formula. Communism is power of Soviet plus electrification of the whole country.
Дальше телевизионное устройство мною было сделано по заказу военного ведомства.
Это был другой мир. Вот. При этом все звучало, все как-то пощелкивало, потрескивало.
I'm going to play the whole thing because I just think it's so fantastically well edited and sort of charmingly done.
Сильно помогали, потому что, естественно, что из КГБ тоже перли все, что только можно было переть.
The ghost of communism fell into oblivion. Perhaps it left this planet forever.
Эта система...
Right, that's enough, but this is a trailer for a film called, I don't know if I pronounce this, Elektro Moskva, which is a Russian film about the history of Russian electronic music and creation. And it just, there's a whole bunch of really good clips that are not all available, which is why I haven't been able to fit. But I couldn't figure out where the hell you could get to watch it. But it's by, now I'm going to have real trouble pronouncing this, Elena Tikhonova and Dominic Spritzendorfer, and it seems to have had some really good reviews, and I'm hoping there's going to be an English dub language, but it's going to be one of those things where we'll find out that there was a huge amount of state funding to build all these incredible synthesizers or something. I just can't wait to see the story. So the chat room are dying for links, so I'm going to just put one in the put the link in the chat room. If I then bring this up, then you'll be able to see it. It's elektromoskva.com. And there is actually, it looks fantastic. I just can't wait because, as we know, Russian synthesizers are very, very rare and very sort of misunderstood because basically it's all Cyrillic, so you just don't really know how they work. And I just like the look of this. This just looks awesome. But I wish I knew where to watch it. Sorry, Mark, go ahead.
I was going to say, it's Vermona Russian. I can't remember.
No, Eastern German, I think.
But I mean, all their controls work back to front. Like their cutoff frequency works the other way round. So not only are the things labelled up weird, but when you try to do the things you expect to do with them when you know what they are, they do the complete opposite.
Oh, really?
That's not to say you can't get some good sounds out of them. I think, and those big old transistors, like they're just big diodes, kind of shorting electricity out, basically, aren't they? So
I think run on 3-phase. Yeah.
Yeah, and like paper capacitors and all that sort of stuff. If you open up any of those I've got an Octava microphone from like 1960 something, and if I open it up and look inside it, it just looks like, well, as you'd expect, but it's sort of a step backwards. But then, you know, I could go off on a huge tangent, but I won't. I'll let Rich speak first, and then I might go off on a tangent.
Russian synths, Rich. Gotta love them. Have you ever had a chance to play with one of those? The Polyvox, any of those things? Will from Golfrap's got a Polyvox, and it really is a wonderful thing. Although it does feel like it's like plastic. Almost feels like if you touch it too much, it'll melt.
No, I haven't spent any time with Russian synthesizers.
I think the thing about them is they've got a very unique character. The Polyvox has got a very angry and interesting filter, and I'm guessing it's sort of a lot of the stuff was built in a vacuum in a lot of ways, because at the time that stuff was being designed and what have you, it was almost, there was very little. Certainly very little trade or information coming to and fro between, I guess, deepest Russia and the West. So I'm sure there must be some brilliant stuff in there. But it looks like such a fantastic documentary. And there's a clip on the website, which if I go here, I don't know if I play it, but it starts off with him in this guy who looks a lot like Swageman, who's in fact Polish, negotiating the purchase of some synth that's in like a car boot sale in deepest Russia. 300, yeah, okay, I'll take rubles. I don't know what that transpires at. But yeah, I want to go to that market and buy stuff like that.
Wow.
That's just, that there kind of says everything to me. Whatever.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm not trying to make this stop now. How do I make it stop? I'll have to close the window. There. But the problem is, I don't know where we're going to. I think what they're trying to do is get it out to a network, so they're getting a licensing deal or something. So you can't actually watch it, which I'm feeling really, in this immediate gratification age of internet and what have you. I can't watch it, and I'm feeling incredibly short change. So I don't know quite what's going to happen, but I hope that it will be on general release somewhere. I'm not exactly sure if anybody, I don't know if anyone in the chat room's heard of it, but it's been around for a little while, but it's only just come. I saw it on Ken Macbeth's Facebook page, and I just thought, I've got to check this out. So yeah, one for Christmas. Imagine if they put that on Boxing Day. That would be great. You know, Dad, can we watch The Wizard of Oz? No, I'm watching Moskva Electronica. Yes, please. Anyway,
I do know a couple of Russian people who might be able to translate any of the stuff that you've read about it for you.
I think that there is actually some translation on the trailers and what have you. But I mean, I don't know if there's a dub or subtitles or something. But I really want it. I want to watch it, sort of now. Anyway, what's next? Oh, yeah, this was interesting. This is Da Vinci's theoretical instrument. And I found another clip of this. This was on Synthopia originally, and where they filmed the entire recital. And this is a chap. I'm not going to be able to pronounce his name. It's Sławomir Zubrzycki. This is the violin Organista, which is an instrument originally designed by Leonardo da Vinci about 500 years ago, one of his sort of paper sketches, like he did the helicopter and lots of other things as well, and hot air balloons as well. It's like keyboard elements of harpsichord. It looks like a hurdy-gurdy, so that there's a horsehair. There's a shot in here about how it works, actually. I think it's coming up shortly. And this is the shot of the drawing. So that's from that he figured it out. So I now understand how this is going to work. And then I think if we look, I think the next shot shows us the wheels. There we go. So the wheel that's got horsehair on it, and then it just brings the strings into play with the keys. Awesome. The 500-year-old is. I don't know if you got the chance to listen to perhaps any of the longer form recital stuff. Certainly the one that was on Synthopia. Rich, does this sort of thing have any interest to you? I mean, you know, you're classically trained, I guess, or at least, Or a pianist. It sounded pretty amazing, though, didn't it? I mean, certainly nicer than a hurdy-gurdy. I hate the sound of those.
Oh, I quite liked it, and it actually reminded me a little bit of that thing we saw last year, the wheel harp.
Yeah, but that sounded just not so good, perhaps. But yes, similar.
Oh, okay.
idea.
Well, I haven't heard either of them in the flesh, but this thing sounded great and looked like a very cool thing, DIY project that he took on, and there's a history of other attempts to use bowed-type technologies for the strings of a keyboard instrument, and this thing probably falls in line with those, as it's not exactly the drawing that I just saw that Da Vinci did, but it's based on the concepts presented first by Da Vinci. I liked it. I really thought it sounded very expressive, and the guy played it well, and I listened to quite a bit of it. It was fun.
It's a great idea, isn't it, to take something that's, like 500-year-old Da Vinci thing and just kind of realise it. And obviously, the guy who played it sounded like he was a fairly serious concert musician anyway. And it was kind of, he had a serious audience there, and obviously fairly big coverage, certainly in Poland. Mark, fancy one of those in your front room?
I'm curious about the tuning of it. If Da Vinci would have come up with his own method of tuning it, as in, like, because Pythagoras invented equal temperament, didn't he? But so many people sort of make that right or wrong, and then different keys need different scales and all that sort of stuff. So I'm curious to know what the musical scale it uses is and how he thought that out, because he sort of invented and came up with so many sort of brilliant mechanical things that I know that's not the main part of it, but it's something that I want to know.
It looked from the drawing that it was more the delivery, because presumably 500 years ago, what that would have been about 1600. When did the equal temperament scale come into being? It wasn't until a bit later, was it? Like 1700s?
I believe 1700s, yeah.
Yeah, so Da Vinci presumably wouldn't have considered that part of it. Perhaps his thing would have been the delivery of it, perhaps more than the tuning.
So when the guys built it, do you think the guys built it true to, like, Da Vinci's idea of how it would have sounded? Because the tuning of it's going to make a massive difference to the way it sounds, depending on what key you're playing in, because equal temperament just kind of splats everything out across all notes, and then all keys work. But I think, as we've discussed before, if you've got something tuned to a particular musical key, and then you play in a different musical key, it just sounds horrible in other keys.
Yeah,
so
it can do,
can't
it?
Just sort of curious
you're testing the limits of my research on the subject, which is practically none.
It's just a question that came to mind. So.
But yeah, no, that's an interesting point.
Sorry.
I know, definitely an interesting point worth bringing up. I don't know whether or not the Viola Organista is likely to, go into sort of larger manufacture, but what I really like is it's got elements of that, like the home organ, the kind of I can't remember what it's called. It's got a little crank stuck where the keys are depressed, the turning wheels press against the strings, and you get
Sousaphone?
I've forgotten what it's called now.
Is it a sousaphone?
No, I think they used to have them in.
Harmonium?
They were like a parlor organ. Used to have them in American homes in the 1800s, I guess.
That's air bellows being controlled from pedals. But what this thing is doing is actually mechanically moving the articulating mechanism, which is the
wheels.
Sort of the bow.
Yeah.
As the string is being pressed against it, and presumably the faster that you pedaled, the more amplitude you would get.
Yeah, well, it looked like from that shot where it was just keeping it very even, so that there was just a continuous thing. But I don't know whether or not if you apply the string with more force, whether that gives it more attack or more. It must affect the tone. So I did notice a couple of times he was sort of doing this with his fingers, and which may have introduced some level of vibrato or something. Certainly in the longer recital, but yeah, I mean, he obviously made it in a way that made it applicable and able to play, from standard keyboard music. But it did. Some of it sounded beautiful, like string quartet kind of stuff, didn't it? It was really, really nice.
Well, I wonder if holding the strings in those positions against the rotating drum causes more force to be applied to the string more regularly and will cause it to go out of tune more quickly than, say, a piano, which is struck momentarily by a hammer.
That's a good point, yeah. I imagine those details, you know, maybe he's the only person in the world who can play it with the right force that means it hasn't gone out of tune by the end of the piece. I don't know. That would be unfortunate, wouldn't it? But you know, you would probably deal with that. I did notice in the longer form, which is this one on the Synthopia page, well, this is like a 10.5-minute recital. And there were a few notes which were just a tiny bit out, so obviously it requires a bit of setting up. Echosonic says in the chat room, the faster you pedal, the greater number of cats are attached to the strings. Yes, I like that. Nice, nice thought there. As ever, the chat room is there for you to join in our live stream, sonicstate.com/live. Please do. We very much enjoy that extra participation. Very much so. Okay, well, let's pass over that one and... let me see. Cubase Gesture Control. Wow, check this out. There's a gesture missing there, I think, isn't there?
You can really use Cubase like a conductor, you know, using your own hands to just control it like with a stick. We started with the most common features for the user. Like, you can play, you can stop, you can rewind, you can forward, you can zoom into the project.
I See Air. Sounds like something from, what's that? I See Dead People. That's the leap motion.
We decided we wanted to be the first to release this kind of product, and now we are really excited to gather users' feedback.
There we go. That's the news that the Cubase have added gestural control. It's like a control panel that works with, if I get this right, there's I've got the details in the news item that we posted. It works, it implements a version of it's a control panel with Cubase 7 and Cubase Artist 7, which gives visual feedback to your hand gestures. I think you saw perhaps some of that in the background there. You can see there's the 5 fingers in a sort of gecko-like display. And you can access pre-configured gestural commands, and I'm guessing you can write your own. You can also tie it in with the AI knob, which is when you hold your mouse over a certain knob and then turn a knob, it controls that. And it just, I mean, it sounds very interesting. I mean, it does seem a little bit like, I think I opened that particular article with the, you know, we didn't know we needed gesture control until we saw Minority Report. So I'm wondering whether or not this would have a place. I mean, maybe in combination with other aspects. I have actually got a Leap Motion here, which I'm hoping tomorrow or the next day to review Geert Bevin's Gecko MIDI controller using it, and so I'm looking very much forward to that. I just wonder your thoughts on this, Rich. I mean, you're one of the guys. You know, you sit in front of the computer all the time. Are you looking for something else? I know we've talked about the large touchscreen. Is perhaps something like this a bit more of an interesting concept? Maybe combined with Tai Chi.
It's an interesting concept, and as the guy who never foresaw the experts at playing drums on buttons, I would have to say that it's got tremendous possibilities that I personally don't envision that people will show me and that will blow me away. For my part, I want to make jokes like, what happens if I sneeze? But, you know, I'm sure somebody is going to turn this thing into high art or some version of it. I've never been... The spatial aspect is always subservient to the music with me. So if I'm moving at all when I'm playing, it's because I'm feeling something about the way I'm playing or what I'm trying to play. And to envision it in some other context or as controlling some other thing is almost hard for me just because of the many years I've got invested in playing that way.
Right.
But I'm quite sure, as I said before, somebody is going to find high art in expressing themselves through this kind of motion-based translation, and I look forward to seeing it.
Yeah,
it's probably not coming from here.
the thing that I immediately thought of was the Jean-Michel Jarre kind of air harp concept, you know, where you've got grand gesture, and if you kind of blow a bit of smoke on a light and make it look, you know, like you're doing stuff, and it actually ends up doing stuff. Because for a long time, I don't know if you remember when the JMJ air harp was out, and YouTube's sort of specialist videos are almost entirely made up of people who made their own DIY laser harps, isn't it? Not air harps. So, I mean, I'm guessing this could be the realisation of something. I mean, it's funny, isn't it, how they make all of these kind of videos now are sort of emotive music, kind of Kickstarter, changing life for the better type moods to them, when in fact, you know, we're talking about...
true.
It's a very strange thing. I don't know, what do you think, Mark? You going to be there?
I like it.
Okay.
I'll go into more detail. The reason I like it is because it's a small device that's clipped on the top of a laptop. I find that I try to control music with so many different kinds of things, and they always involve me having to set something up and find somewhere to put it. So, for example, I've been playing with Ableton, and I bought a MIDI foot controller, and I set the whole thing up so that I can punch Ableton in and out of record, and I can stand in front of my computer, play the guitar, which takes 2 hands, and then use my feet to set up all of my tracks, skip between tracks, set up new scenes, record, and blah, 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 right? And then I never plug it in. So I was making music the other day, I got the computer out, I got the guitar out, I started having ideas. At that point, I'm not going to stop and dig around for a Ethernet cable and a MIDI cable and all the other stuff I need to plug that thing in and set it up. But if this thing is with the computer and becomes part of the way that I use computers, then it would become part of the way that I write music as well.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, the Leap Motion, I've got one here, is tiny. You know, you just put it somewhere. And you can imagine this being built into the bevel of your, you know, where your webcam is. I mean, it's not too much. I'm guessing there's some kind of infrared sensor and device here on the top. I can't tell because, oops, well, I just dropped it, but I'm sure it'll be fine. But yeah, it's a question of whether if you need your hands to do it, then your hands are already going to be doing something else, right? But if you can use your head or gestures other ways, then maybe there's other interesting ways. And I can see that perhaps in ways where if you're working with a mouse on a macro level, and then you need to, you know, just do something like this to swap desktops or those kind of things. I think these are the ways that are going to be introduced, where we think, oh yeah, that could work. And then, as with all of these things, because it's such a paradigm shift, there's actually going to be, you know, it's going to be incremental, and there'll be times when we think, yeah, that would be really cool for me to have. And what is it? It's like $60 for a Leap Motion, and I just need the driver. Yeah, I'll do that because you know. So I can see that working.
I mean, with the guitar is such an awkward instrument to play that you've got the thing round your neck like this, and then the guitar neck sticking out. If I want to do anything on the laptop, I'm more than likely going to smack the laptop with the guitar neck, or drop the guitar, or get it tangled up, or whatever. And if I've got something I can just wave at, even though I'm doing 2 things with my hands, it's, you know, it becomes awkward when I stop to do things like cut regions so I can loop them, so I can play the next part or whatever. So if I can do that, if I can go, you know, I just need to cut this here and it understands all that sort of stuff, then yeah, it would be very cool indeed.
Yeah, I think you're right, actually, Rich, about, you know, not necessarily seeing the immediate benefits from it, but, you know, perhaps you just need to be shown, don't you, something that would be kind of cool, right?
I just saw one hilarious one in the chat room where a fellow called Fancy Man says, when you smile, it autosaves.
Yeah, why not?
That's a great idea. Let's have a look. When you smile, it autosave. Yeah, nice.
That's pretty great.
I wonder what resolution the gestures are capable to see. Well, if you look, if you saw the video, and with the Leap Motion, you can get it to recognise points of your hand. So you could be doing these kind of gestures, or this kind of gesture, because when you're up, you've got maybe 2 points of reference, like this one and this one. And so I think I think the issue is with a lot of these things, it's like the theremin, isn't it? You know, people have to be very specific to get the accuracy. And if we're talking about controlling pitch and those sort of things, actually playing instruments, or what am I trying to say? Repeatable gestures that have an accuracy to them, then it's going to take, you know, a while to learn something. You're going to have some kind of term of reference, so you know that when you're your fingers here level with your eye, you've got, an inch or something to get whatever it is that you need to do. So it's going to require the learning of a language of gestural control in the same way that we have with touch control. I just wonder whether or not this is an incrementation too far too soon. I don't know. For somebody like Cubase to kind of get in, I'm guessing must be a fairly simple, Leap Motion. There must be sort of fairly standard libraries they've just pulled in and a little editor that's easy to put in to actually implement, right? No. Yes.
I don't know. I think you learn things more quickly than you imagine, because whenever I buy a new computer and I sit down in front of a new computer, like a new laptop, and it's got key layout ever so slightly different to the last one, for the first few hours that I'm typing on it, I'm all over the place, and none of anything I type makes sense, and I need to look. Same with the mouse. It feels like almost like, oh God, I can't get anything to work on the screen. And then like a couple of days later, you don't even notice that it's changed. And then when you go back to using the old one,
yeah, it's alien. Yeah.
It still feels like sort of usable. That's the weird thing. We learn how to use these things, and then we learn how to use other things, and it's as easy to switch back, but it's like an ongoing learning process. So I think if it came out and it had some things that we could do, and then as we sort of progress with it, it gets more and more complex, I think people could get on board with it quite quickly.
I think they've been quite smart by introducing it as a free downloadable component. So, here you go, guys. If you've got a Leap Motion or one of those depth perceiving cameras, go crazy and do stuff, and that's what's going to... and I don't know whether or not it's possible to write macros and share those gestures so that they could become a commonality to that language, because that's the sort of thing that has to happen, isn't it? It's like this... means get, do you know what I mean? There are going to be gestures which somebody actually rather kindly put in the comments for the story. Language. Yeah, with the comments for the story is they missed one. It's like this should be stop, which would have worked. You could, yes.
This is milk, isn't it?
No, and there's this one as well, isn't there? Which is that's sign language, but we know what that is. That's BS, I think. But anyway,
yeah.
As my daughter is very fond of showing me, she was taught that by a young deaf kid. Anyway, you can get it now. Go to it and do your best. I might try. Well, I haven't got a Cubase actually, but I've got Leap Motion, so like I say, I'm going to try some of that action. Right, what's time? 10 to 4. We've got a couple more things to do. Let's try video number 5. I think we might have covered this before, but it's had an update, and I don't think I remember seeing this demo. This is Zynaptiq Pitchmap, which is kind of like a real-time repitching of audio, which kind of blows me away a little bit. I don't remember if we've seen this, but I know we've seen some of Zynaptiq stuff because they did the unfilter and they've done the things for sort of changing the reverb. They were the first to get the take the reverb out and add reverb, and it really kind of was one of those magical moments. So this is the video. This is actually from last year, but here we go. It's a Melodyne-like process by the looks of things, so it identifies the pitches in the audio polyphonically, and then you can play in real time the MIDI keyboard and change the timbre, the pitch of the stuff in real time. There's all sorts of other things you can do with it as well. Kind of mind-blowing, this, isn't it? I mean, imagine you could actually have you could have backing vocalists and stuff kind of reworking their own things, almost like in the same way that you can already with the TC Electronic stuff, but the Helicon. But I mean, it's not the most perfect. It's not pitch perfect, and if you move it too much, it does sound a bit strange. But it could be an interesting thing. I don't know, Rich. Do you think something like this for those track date kind of playback, where you can just kind of go, hey, let's just take it up a semitone for the kick it out for the chorus out, let's go, or change the arrangement in real time? If you had somebody trusted sitting there with the keyboard who would actually do that, do you think that maybe has a performance aspect? I mean, I think it needs a whole bunch of processor grunt to do, but some interesting...
Well, it's a pretty artifact-rich environment at the moment, right. But it portends good things.
I think you can change I had a quick look, and you can change the sort of the attack and the transient, and the, so that you can change things a little bit differently. and you can run multiple instances to it. And there are some. The musical examples are perhaps not the most contemporary and sort of thrilling, but the concept is there. I mean, can you not do the same sort of thing in Melodyne DNA, where you play the keyboard in and you repitch stuff?
You can try, and sometimes it'll work out better than others. I think that what is really interesting to me is that this company, Zynaptiq, has developed some very interesting ways of analyzing audio and creating a result that one previously would have said is impossible. And so to the extent that it all seems somewhat magical, I give them huge kudos. And in the case of exactly how this one sounded to me in the demos, like I said, it's a bit of an artifact-rich environment, and I hope for better things in the future, but it is very exciting.
Yeah, I mean, it does say, if you go to the website, you can download it's Pitchmap. Let me see if I grab it here. You can try it, so that you have to sort of email them and they'll send you a code, I think. But it does say that it is massively, if we go to the try, there is actually a thing in here which says, by the way, don't forget, it uses a lot of CPU, so please do bear that in mind. I think, perhaps the expectation may be higher because we're used to seeing this magical stuff. But I imagine running this something on, like, maybe one of the new Mac Pros when it's got, oodles and gigaflops and what have you of processing, we might be able to see a bit more kind of performance out of it. I know, Mark, you kind of like the idea of it? I
do like the idea of it. I mean, it's turning the reality of sound into sort of sound plasticine and playing around with, it's playing around with our perception of things in like really weird ways, isn't it? And it's sort of, it means that we can like really dig into things that we haven't been able to do. Like Rich says, we're doing stuff which was previously impossible. Suddenly now it's becoming possible. So although it's using tons and tons of CPU, it's sort of, it's a step in a direction where everyone else who's trying to do stuff like this is going to go in competition and try and create tools that can do similar things. And then, I don't know, in a few years' time, we'll be able to completely change everything about something from the 2-track master, and then go back and rework stuff and pull elements out. And I want to get to a day where somebody goes, oh, that Beatles song, I've just got the I've got the multi-track because I put it through this plugin and it demuxed it somehow, or demixed it, or I mean, we're getting
not
there.
Far away, are we? No.
The Rock Band guys got very close to that with the Beatles material, in particular the mono early recordings, and I spent a while grilling them on how they did it.
Yeah,
but they got very close.
I mean, the thing about
multi-tracks, you can hear their multi-track derivations. They're out there somewhere.
It's kind of bizarre, isn't it, that you can do that? I mean, the other problem with this particular demo is that it is artifact rich, but they're pouring something that's going to have a lot of artifacts because of the way that it's processing stuff into more artifact rich format. So they're like putting it as a video on YouTube or whatever. Right. And then so MP3 or MP4 audio encoding ends up with loads of artifacts. So if you've got some artifacts in there and you end up with loads more artifacts, you just kind of, you might get better results working with really clean material and then not encoding it to MP3, I suppose. So
yeah, it might be interesting to hear like a clean strummed guitar and playing that. Yeah. That might, yeah. But, yeah, very interesting. I think we may have covered this before at the time, because I see it must have been, probably was around at Mesa time last year. I don't think I got to see that, because I think the Unveil was the one that... is that what it was called, Rich? I think that's what it was called.
Yeah.
Yes.
And there's they are, on a par with the kind of... remember that sort of amazing magic moment when we first saw Melodyne DNA in operation, and everybody just went, wait a minute, what just happened there? They're doing stuff on a par with all of that, which is really interesting. So I'm sure they're definitely a company to watch, and in terms of what they can do, there's going to be a lot more stuff coming along, definitely.
I mean, the way it works is it breaks the audio down into narrow filter bands. So like when we were playing around with Alchemy on the Atari ST, if we could break the audio down into like 128 bands, that was like miraculous. It was like, oh my God, look, I can get this sound and create this FFT landscape of it, and I can break it down into all these component parts. But now we're talking like 4096 in real time. So it's breaking it down into finer and finer and finer and finer details. So there will come a time when we can break it down into thousands of component parts and then tweak each of those little tiny parts with faders and isolate things and work out which things should be with other things and then sort of put it all back together. So, I mean, it is, you know, as we get more and more computing power, we're going to get closer to that.
And I suppose the thing about this is it's feasible to do this with FFT transformation and all sorts of other things that we could do, but the idea that it can be done, all of that fancy stuff, the tweaking and the tinkering can be kept, and we just have a knob which is less, more. You know, that's kind of what we want, isn't it? That's what people want, isn't it? You know, ultimately. So, but I mean, it's nice, and there is quite a lot of level of tinker that you can do with this in terms of the way that the enveloping and the transients seem to work. So, like I say, get hold of the demo.
I want somebody to work all that stuff out for me and to work out what's the best possible setting without me having to tinker too much with it. I mean, give me some options so I can vary it just to see. But I'm sure that, you know, with some of those things, the default setting's often the best one, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Okay, well, do check it out, Zynaptiq.com. That's Zynaptiq in a sort of strangely spelt way, but do check it out. Right, we've got 2 topics left. I think we might have time for one of them. We have the €379 808, or we've got the $80 tiny Linux PC. Anybody have a preference as to which one of those we do, if any? Number 2, right, okay, that comes from Rich, so I'm going to press play now. Now this is Cloudsto MK, what's it called? Oh dear, I'll have to go to my, there we go. It's the Cloudsto quad-core Linux PC, right, so and this is like 80 quid, and this is the LMMS music environment that runs on the flavour of Linux. It runs a version of Ubuntu. It's a quad-core 1.6 gigahertz machine, 2 gigs of RAM, 3 USB ports, built-in Wi-Fi, 1080p output. It's got, well, I mean, there's just a lot. I think it's got an SD card for storage. I mean, this is all very basic stuff, but bearing in mind this is running on an £80 computer, I don't think we'll play in its entirety because it's not a very interesting video. But if I come back to the actual screen, it is astonishing what they've been. Let me see, I think I've actually got the link. If I click the link, we can see that what you pay for this. This is the size of it. There it is. It looks rather like a kind of a MiFi kind of dongle, 8GB flash storage, quad core. I mean, this is pretty amazing stuff. Because I use the Raspberry Pi over there on the large monitor. It generally runs the real-time Google Analytics, which is brilliant, but that keeps crashing because it's just can't deal with the level of processing it requires. So one of these, which is that's about 25 quid, but you have to buy a case and a power supply, so it's probably about 35, 40 quid. This is about double the price, but it seems to be an extremely more capable processor. Rich, I'm guessing you're excited about this just purely because it's small, right? What would you use it for?
Well, you could use it for almost anything, assuming that all you had to bring now is a keyboard and a controller, like a mouse or a trackpad or whatever your controller of choice is. And you could arrive to your hotel room with nothing in it but a computer monitor, and you stick this thing into an HDMI port, and that's your and your life is in the cloud, and that's your whole rig.
I guess
it portends flash drive sized computers.
Yeah, but I suppose, aren't we already there with a phone? I mean, if you had an HDMI out on your phone and a Bluetooth keyboard, wouldn't you be in the same boat?
Yeah, kind of, I guess. But being able to stream it's just being able to use existing monitor systems. Like I've just gotten Google Chromecast downstairs to play around with it. It was cheap and it's fun. And right now it only supports 2 things that I've been able to reliably make work with it, which are YouTube and Netflix. But and there are certain other things you can, with some degree of pain, get streaming to the thing. But it's really not that well supported yet. But for $35, it really interested me. And what I see this thing as a further extension of that, where you're hanging an actual entire computer off the back of your video monitor. And that's pretty cool.
Well, it's presumably there are things like this in some of modern TVs anyway, because they don't take all that much space up. But, I mean, it could, you know...
I don't see... This thing's got some pretty impressive specs, and it runs its own operating system and acts like a computer.
Yeah.
You know, and has built-in Wi-Fi. It's just, I think that, again, all the uses for this thing have not been dreamed up yet, but the idea that your flash drive, next generation flash drive, is going to be the entire computer and not just the... you know, the RAM is, or the storage is pretty amazing.
Well, that's interesting. Omnipulse in the chat room says that there is a version built into a keyboard, I think, in the chat room. And that sounds like... So you basically just have a keyboard with an HDMI out port and a power cable, and it's all built in. And that sounds like an interesting idea. I mean, I'm guessing this comes back to this notion of these kind of single-purpose devices. So if you devise... I think it would run something like Pure Data, which is one of the things that's that enables you to create interesting synthesis engines and what have you that work on the Raspberry Pi. This is an ARM chip structure. So if people can design something cool that you just put on a SD card plug-in and it becomes a, you know, whatever it is, a Hartman Neuron or a, you know, D110, or do you know what I mean, or these emulations, then I think, you know, this is where, again, we're going to get to the point where the hardware becomes the utility and the software, you just plug it in and you get the functionality, and that might be where it becomes very interesting. But I'm very keen to try one of these out, and at least I expect it would drive my monitor more efficiently than the Raspberry Pi it does at the moment.
And it also has a card slot in it, which allows you to do offline storage, which is cool. And
well, it's got 3 USB slots, so you could stick a drive off the back of it anyway. Yeah,
right. And it's, you know, it comes in a consumer-friendly package. As much as I love the idea of Raspberry Pi, and it's a gorgeous and wonderful thing, it's a circuit board with a bunch of stuff hanging off of it.
Yeah.
And it's not what you would call a consumer-friendly packaging. And that is a feature and an attractive aspect to a lot of its current user base. But in terms of mass market products, this
you can rack mount Raspberry Pis.
Yeah,
but nobody, your normal,
it's just not
quite
quite
buy a rack kit, want to do that. Put 2 of them in a rack.
Yes, it's not quite powerful enough to do much. Ed in the chat room says that you know, what's wrong with the keyboard, with the design of a laptop? It's a self-contained monitor with a mouse and a keyboard.
Well, it's down to 3 pounds now, the laptop, and I love my 3-pound laptop. But it is 3 pounds. It's not a flash drive. And in certain kinds of circumstances, it might be more desirable to travel with a flash drive and a Bluetooth keyboard or something. I don't know. But I get your point.
Sorry, Mark,
how about if your laptop was a screen and a keyboard, and your computing device plugged into the side of your laptop, like this USB thing, and when your computing device went out of date, you just took the USB thing and swapped it out for another one. Or it had a slot where it could just slot into the side of the, you know, if we had more generic hardware in terms of laptops where we had like a screen and a keyboard and a slot where you actually plug the computer into the laptop. Because you don't want to update your screen and your keyboard all the time. That's the bit that evolves the most slowly. I mean, the biggest evolution we've had in that's perhaps like HD screens, but they've been a long time coming. The rest of the computer evolves really, really fast. So if you could separate those 2 bits, which is kind of what this is doing,
then it's an interesting idea.
It's a useful thing.
Well, assuming it gets to the point where it is actually more than just, you know, a quad-core ARM, it needs to be something a bit more kind of juicy.
Okay.
I suppose for that to work.
Say my laptop's only is a quad-core, but it's a quad-core i5, so I suppose that's a bit fast, isn't it? i7. Something.
Like with Chromebooks, though, it's plenty for what most people want to do most of the time.
Well, yeah, unless I want to run Logic 9 and then it falls over.
Well, then you're not most people at that point.
No, I suppose so.
Yeah. But, I mean, there's a thread, isn't there? Because we've got these little modular... there's lots of kind of modular electronics becoming... you know, all these Kickstarter campaigns, the little bits, I've forgotten the pocket modules. I can't remember what they were called. We covered them last week.
There's a mobile phone as well, isn't there? They've brought out a new format for mobile phone, which is like a Lego block thing, and then you can just click all the different modules that you want to use onto it. And they're trying to persuade Nokia and Philips and Samsung, all the major manufacturers, to go with this new format for mobile phones. So you have like a core, and then you stick all the different stuff on. So if you're, I don't know, 80 years old and you're only interested in phoning your daughter once in a while, and you have a mobile phone with huge great big buttons, and you just add that module. And if you're like use texting all the time, you add that module. If you take lots of photographs, then you put a huge lens on it or whatever.
Yeah,
I wish I could remember what it was
good
called,
luck with that, because I mean that's going to, you know, that takes the differentiation of the brands out of it, which is what makes all of these companies tick, really. So I mean that's the problem, isn't it? What's necessarily best and what's good for just evolution of technology is not the same thing that's good for business, right? Exactly. Anyway, that sounds like a fun thing. Anyway, if anyone's wondering, yes, I do. I'd love to have one for Christmas. That's very kind of you to offer or even think it without saying it. I'm speaking to a wider world here, but well, that sounds like we're probably at a good point to adjourn for the week. Once again, I want to thank everybody very much for their arrival. Great to the chat room. Thank you very much in the chat room. Patch Blocks. We've got a good. Oh, that was you, Rich. We've got a bunch of people in the chat room, including our panelists, I'd like to say. So yes, thank you very much. And of course, if you want to come and see us anytime on a Wednesday, 4 p.m. UK time, sonicstate.com/live is the place to do it. Incidentally, if you're interested in what's happening on Sonic, we did put a Sonic Touch out today, which was the talking about the iConnect MIDI 2 Plus, which is a very interesting device that works with your iOS device. And I've also got there was something else I was going to publish as well. Oh yes, I've got these Novation Launch Key Mini and Launch Control review is going to be coming out soon as well. So once again, thank everybody for joining us. We'll go and say to Rich, thank you. It's great to have you back. You're looking well and well travelled. Is that it for a little while now, or are you still off?
Oh hell no!
Ah.
Oh no! We're going around the world one more time between now and the end of the year.
Wow! How exciting!
And I leave in a week, so I don't think I'll be on next week at least. And then it's China, India, Malaysia, Australia, and then, no kidding, from Australia we go to Amsterdam, and then Brussels, and then home on the 20th of December.
Wow. So you'll be enjoying a good rest. You'll be the guy on the couch after dinner, just kind of having a little nap, right? Like all good patriarchal figures.
How are your knees holding out through all this? Are they better now?
Thank you. Are they better? When I'm maintaining a decent level of glucosamine in my system, my left knee doesn't bother me.
Ah, right.
My right knee is fine. My walking is okay. I have some back problems, but we're getting through it.
Excellent.
We stand up for every show.
Excellent.
Excellent.
Glad to hear it.
Thank you.
When's your birthday, Rich? That's another question.
Well, hold on. This is all going live. You've got to be discreet with your questions, Mark.
No, I know, but we should all celebrate.
That's true.
I think it's either. Is it the 21st, your birthday?
No, it's the 8th of November. It's
gone.
Past.
Happy birthday, Rich.
Oh my God, my friend's is on the 20th. I know, yeah, my friend Walt is on the 20th.
There we go, folks. It's live diary kind of conjuring.
Oh, it's too late. I've missed sending him a card.
Oh, right. Okay. Well, anyway, thank you very much, Rich. I sincerely hope you enjoy your time. And obviously, whenever we can get you, we're more than happy for you to be on the show. Your voice is always welcome. So thank you very much for joining us.
Fine. Thank you. I love it.
And also Mark Tinley there, who's still lit by a lovely daylight lamp, which is giving him that...
You see this here? If you go to this likebeing.com website,
yeah,
and you click on a link there to the logicofattraction.com, or it might be logicofattraction.com, and then you click on another link that says get the audio book. If you follow that little pattern, you'll hear much more of Rich Hilton. This one down the bottom there.
How audio? POV audio?
Click on the orange one with the hand and the book. That one.
That one.
Right at the bottom left.
Oh, no, that was the wrong one. Oh, damn. Yes, gotcha. Okay.
That one.
Okay, so that's
and
that
then
one.
when you click on get the audio book or audio book
here. Audio book here. The Logic of
That
Attraction.
is where you'll hear much more of Rich Hilton.
Ah, there we go. This is Introduction by the Author. Well, thank you very much, Mark. Maybe we'll get you to the bestseller charts for Christmas. Thank you very much for joining us.
Wonderful. If I sold one.
I know that feeling, man.
It's only just gone up there, so I'm sure it'll sell lots. So I appreciate anything, and all of them, and everyone.
Right. Well, thank you very much. That was Sonic Talk number 339 of all things. So next week we'll be back. Until then, have fun, and thank you very much for joining us. And I'm going to play... I'm just going to fade to black. What the hell?